We'll be starting Chapter 14 of Barry and the Boys, the CIA, the Mob, and America's Secret History by Daniel Hopsicker. Who are the brothers McLeany? Mike McLeany was a wonderful athlete, a national tennis champion, and a splendid golf hustler. New Orleans antiques dealer Dave Dixon, Barry Seal's CIA handler, had told us. But none of these attributes which Dixon ascribed to his friend made McLeany important enough to burglarize the U.S. House of Representatives, but his training camp in Lacombe for terrorist mercenaries and assassins is a whole other story. One of the most significant eyewitness observations was of Ferry, Oswald, and numerous Cubans, all dressed in military fatigues and carrying automatic rifles, conducting what appeared to be a military training maneuver, wrote historian Michael Kurtz. Longtime CIA hitman Colonel William Bishop, shortly before his death in 1990, told author Dick Russell, "I did look into Oswald's background. I'd never met him, but I'd seen him in a training film in New Orleans the past summer. He just happened to be in the group out there at the Pontchartrain camp." In July of 1963, a group of Cuban exiles had arrived in New Orleans from Miami, according to numerous accounts. They bivouacked at the anti-Castro guerrilla training camp at Lacombe, where Marcello maintained a hunting lodge on property belonging to Havana Casino Mike McLeany, who worked for Meyer Lansky. After the Miami exiles arrived and Lee Oswald shows up. Now, whether Oswald is patsy or co-conspirator, is emissary for spiders from Mars. What is significant here is that he was in the company, once again, of Guy Bannister, David Ferry, and David Atlee Phillips. Had the film ever been shown, it would have demolished the lone nut explanation of the assassination. When we asked engaging but slippery CIA man in 60s New Orleans, Gordon Novell, if he had known the McLeany brothers, his answer was interesting. "I knew Mike McLeany by name, a CIA guy supposedly dead now, but," he continued, "here's the problem in dealing with intelligence. It's a beehive. Everybody operates in separate cubicles. Our operation never overlapped. Just because we were both in New Orleans doesn't mean we ever came in contact." The CIA, which at first denied having knowledge of the training camp at Lacombe, eventually reversed field a bit, saying, "The New Orleans CIA station ignored the Christian Democratic Movement camp since it had agency backing." Reversing themselves in a final time in June 1975, the CIA's Gerald Brown said an unknown group had backed the camp. For its part, the stolid FBI has always had trouble lying with the panache of their better educated brethren at the agency. They ignored the existence of the camp. Warren DeBreeze stated grimly to the House Committee on Assassinations, because they felt one federal government agency should not investigate the alleged official activities of another unless specifically instructed to do so for suitable reasons by higher authority. The Bureau does have one slick trick, however, which they use repeatedly in their reports. They misspell the name of whoever they're protecting, so it won't turn up in computer searches later. So, in a memorandum, Special Agent DeBreeze recalled Senator Richard Schweiker seemed to be interested in an anti-Castro training camp, which was alleged to have been located in a rural area across a lake in New Orleans. I did state that there was a case in which a search warrant was effected by me and other special agents of a residence located on the other side of the lake from New Orleans sometime in the summer of 1963. The owner of the property was a man named McLeany, PH, who I recall may have had some prior gambling connections in Cuba. Saying McLeany may have had prior gambling connections in Cuba is akin to saying Hitler might have had something to do with killing Jews. Southern Law Rex Armistead told us the three most overrated things in the world are home cooking, home loving, and the FBI. So, who were Mike and Bill McLeany? Mike was already stated as a casino owner in Havana. One of his lieutenants, Louis McWillie, was Jack Ruby's best friend. When Fidel Castro took power, Mike McLeany was arrested, then freed and continued to operate under Castro in hopes of becoming a gambling czar of Cuba. Hopes nurtured by having paid a $102,000 bribe to Fidel Castro's Ministry of Gambling, future Watergate burglar Frank Sturgis. When his Casino Nacional was nationalized, McLeany lost at least $7 million. His brother Bill owned the Carousel Club in Las Vegas. It is presumably coincidence that Ruby's club in Dallas was also called the Carousel Club. But when Life magazine printed a story linking McLeany with Meyer Lansky, he filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. The magazine produced newspaper clippings confirming that no casino operated in Havana without Lansky's consent. The suit was thrown out. Because of the life story, the Miami police began a brief investigation of McLeany. Mr. McLeany named some of his close friends, their report said. Those named J. Edgar Hoover, John S. Knight, publisher of the Miami Herald, and Rocky Parmanants, chief of the Miami Police Department. He, McLeany, stated that he could use these people as reference along with the chief of police and the mayor of New Orleans. McLeany could probably have quit after mentioning Hoover, but mob guys like to boast. What frame is the kiss of death to mobsters and spooks like John Gotti or Barry Seal. McLeany is no exemption. His notoriety finally prompted the Internal Revenue Services to file income tax evasion charges on him. He was convicted of evading $118,000 in taxes, but was sentenced typically to just 3 months in federal prison. Being connected means never having to say you're sorry. One of his erstwhile employers, Gary Hemming, stated, Mike McLeany was in with some of William K. Harvey's people and jam wave type assholes. CIA agent Harvey had been literally licensed to kill, and ran the CIA assassination Operation Z Rifle. Its targets were heads of state, and it recruited a pool of assassins, including Thomas Eli Davis, involved with Jack Ruby in gun-running operations since 1959. Even the apartment house on Magazine Street where Lee Oswald lived during his stay in New Orleans was probably not just an ordinary apartment building. Ed Haslam, author of a book about David Ferry, told us of visiting Oswald's apartment while scouting locations for a Frontline documentary and meeting the current owner, who stated he had purchased the property from a guy with a business out at the racetrack named McLeany. McLeany's brother, William Julius McLeany, had operated a racehorse feed business at the New Orleans Fairgrounds. If true, Oswald's apartment was a CIA safe house. No wonder J. Edgar Hoover was concerned with wrapping up the Warren Commission in such a short order. The raid on McLeany's camp netted a large cache of armaments and 11 men arrested and then released. Their number included Richard Lonkilly, an arms dealer who supplied Fidel in the late 1950s and co-founder of the Minutemen. In 1976, he told the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the federal law enforcement agencies know more than they are telling about the assassination of President Kennedy, but I don't want to say which ones because I'm friendly with them. Someday it will come out, someday it will all come out, but now just isn't the time. Lonkilly's fellow Minuteman, John Thomas Mason, M-A-S-E-N, was middleman for military weapons smuggling from Fort Hood through Dallas, an operation with Jack Ruby as paymaster. Mobster Sam Benton. Sam would never go near anything that might explode. Mike McClaney had said about Benton was a con artist, setting up the Cuban refugee relief for which Leighton Martins and David Ferry collected money before police began looking into the fact that over 90% of the money contributed was being eaten up by administrative overhead. Cuban exile fighter Victor Pank, Carlos Quiroga, told the New Orleans District Attorney's Office that Pank was in charge of training at this camp. His file contains no information to indicate connection in the Lacombe, Louisiana area, the CIA said. Ricardo Davis, who told a fellow worker later, who in turn reported it to the FBI, that while living in New Orleans, his living expenses were paid off for by an anti-Castro organization known as the Minutemen. Davis stated Lee Harvey Oswald was also connected in some manner with the Minutemen organization. With assistance of John Birch Society members, David said he had set up a training site in Lacombe. Fidel's commies later straightened out our feeble FBI gumshoes in a documentary never shown to the public in the United States. They fingered the Lake Pontchartrain busts as the turning point in the war for control of America. When the FBI let everybody go with no charges being filed, the documentary said it was a clear signal to extremist CIA mafia and Cuban exile elements that Kennedy policies were no longer being carried out and that Kennedy himself was no longer being protected from executive sanction. A permanent solution must now be devised. And that's a short chapter today.